Hi, my name is Mark.
And I'm Melissa Casias.
We're from Blue Creek Outfitters in Taos, New Mexico.
When Melissa Casias vanished, she did not take her car. She did not take her wallet. She did not take her identification. She did not take her personal phone or her work phone. Both of those were left behind. Both had been factory reset. Her home was locked. Her car was parked outside it. There were no signs of a struggle. There was no note. There was no message. There was no explanation. Just hours earlier, Melissa had been out running errands. She had delivered lunch to her daughter. She had said, "I love you." She had walked out of a cafe in Taos like it was any other day. The last confirmed sighting of Melissa Casias shows her walking alone along a rural highway. It's not known where she's going. Nobody knows why she left everything behind. This case really is perplexing. Why would a woman with a job, a family, and plans for the weekend simply disappear? In this video, I will share with you 8 pieces of surreal evidence that make this case truly disturbing. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with various uploads every single week. So if all of that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by simply hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. What's the weather like where you are right now? For me, it's raining. I'm in England. What do we expect? Let me know down in the comments. And just a quick update, the Dark Case Patreon is now no more. However, I have created some new tiers here on YouTube memberships, and that means there are some new perks including exclusive videos, as well as a behind the scenes podcast that I will be recording in my car in a cemetery. All memberships are greatly appreciated, but of course it's not mandatory, and there will continue to be a ton of free stuff on this channel like there always has been. It's simply a way to show a little more support if you appreciate what I'm doing on a platform that seems to be on fire half the time. Anyway, now on with the video. Melissa Casias was not only familiar with the outdoors, she ran a business called Blue Creek Outfitters with her husband. This business sold hunting equipment, and it also organized guided hunting expeditions for paying clients. This required extended time spent in remote terrain. It also required planning, endurance, and practical survival knowledge. So Melissa regularly and confidently operated in outdoor environments where help was not immediately available. She was experienced in walking long distances over uneven ground. She understood weather exposure, hydration needs, and physical pacing. Family members described her as capable and self-sufficient. Her father stated that she could survive outdoors for days if necessary. This background is significant when considering her last confirmed sighting, but we'll get to that in a minute. I just feel that this context is really important to the wider case, and as we go on, you'll see that it opens up a few more options. The unanswered questions do not begin after Melissa vanished. There are some from that morning. At around 6:15 a.m., Melissa drove her husband to Los Alamos National Laboratory. This was part of their normal routine. Both of them worked there, and surveillance footage showed Melissa's vehicle entering the laboratory property. Under normal circumstances, she would then continue on to her own work location, but that did not happen. Instead, her vehicle was recorded leaving the property shortly after arrival. Later that morning, Melissa returned to the family home in Ranchos de Taos. When daughter Sierra woke up at 7:30 a.m., she was surprised to see her mother home once again. Melissa explained this away though, telling her daughter that she had forgotten her work badge. She said that she would work from home or handle errands instead. Sierra at that time had no reason to question that explanation. Nothing about Melissa's demeanor seemed unusual. She was behaving normally, she was speaking calmly. She hugged her daughter goodbye before Sierra left for work at a cafe. Later, strangely, husband Mark said that he believed that he had seen Melissa use her badge that morning at work. He even stated that the driver must present a badge to enter the facility, and that driver was Melissa. This detail might seem kind of small, but it does become significant after we know Melissa disappeared. At the time, Melissa's explanation was accepted. Melissa did not mention any emergencies. She didn't mention any conflict. She didn't say that she would be unreachable later in the day. In fact, by mid-morning, she was expected to return the shared vehicle, but she did not. Late in the morning, Melissa drove into Taos. She stopped at a Subway restaurant. She purchased lunch for her daughter, and then shortly before 1 p.m., Melissa arrived at a cafe where daughter Sierra was working.
At some point, she took a break and picked up Subway and dropped it off for her daughter, my cousin Sierra, at the coffee shop where she works in the Taos Plaza area.
The visit was only brief. They spoke for just a few minutes, and according to investigators, that conversation lasted from approximately 12:50 to 12:57 p.m. Melissa handed the sandwich to her daughter. Sierra described her mother as calm. She did, however, say that she may have been a little quieter than usual, but nothing about her behavior caused any alarm. There were no visible signs of distress. There were no overt cries for help. There was also no indication that Melissa was planning to leave town. After the sandwich was handed over and the conversations were wrapped up, Sierra gave her mother a check. That check was meant to be deposited at the bank. Melissa accepted it, and she agreed to deposit it. She told her daughter that she loved her. She then walked out to the cafe. CCTV footage later confirmed that Melissa left the area shortly after. That moment would become the last time that anyone in her family spoke to her directly. At the time of the lunch delivery, Melissa still had access to her vehicle. She was still moving around freely of her own free will. She was still interacting normally with people that she knew. As far as everyone knew, this was still a normal day. Melissa dropping a sandwich off to Sierra, it showed that just 1 to 2 hours before she vanished, Melissa's day was still looking routine. So, what changed after she said goodbye and walked away? By early afternoon, it was confirmed that Melissa was not at work. The explanation that she'd given in the morning was now raising more questions than answers. Why did she leave the lab? Why did she return home? Why was she giving different explanations to different people? And why did a normal routine day turn into a nightmare? By early afternoon, communication with Melissa had begun to fail. Her husband had expected to hear from her about transportation home from work, but that communication never came. When Melissa's supervisor called, asking whether she was okay, concern escalated. Until that moment, her sudden absence from everyone's lives had not been fully understood. Multiple attempts were now made to reach Melissa directly, but calls went unanswered. Text messages went unread. At approximately 1:30 p.m., Melissa's husband contacted their daughter to ask if she'd heard from her. Sierra said that she had seen her mother earlier in the day. She was then asked to message Melissa directly. So, Sierra sent a message to Melissa asking whether her mother would be picking up her father or if he needed to arrange another ride home. Now that message showed as read, but there was no response. At the time, this did not immediately alarm Sierra. She believed that her mother would just respond later. As the afternoon progressed, the lack of communication became more noticeable. At around 2 p.m., her husband attempted to call again. When he then tried to phone his daughter, Sierra was unable to answer his calls because she was at work. But when she was finally able to listen to her voicemails from her father, she heard the concern in his voice. He told her that he had still not heard from her mother. So, Sierra attempted to message Melissa again. This time though, the message did not even deliver. This change marked a clear turning point. The phone was no longer receiving messages at all. Whether it was turned off, disconnected, or disabled was unknown. What they did know was that contact had now stopped altogether. From this point forwards, no direct communication from Melissa was ever received again. This concerning silence became one of the few markers in a timeline that was otherwise uncertain. It also narrowed down the window of when something had changed. When Melissa didn't respond to messages, concern began to grow. By mid-afternoon, her husband still had not heard from her. Her daughter Sierra left work and went home. Melissa's car was already there. It was parked outside the house as if she had returned home normally. The doors to the home were locked. Nothing appeared to be broken or disturbed. Inside the home, though, Sierra immediately noticed that something was wrong. Melissa's keys were on the table. Her work phone was also on the table. So Sierra searched the rest of the house. In her mother's office, she found Melissa's purse. Inside that purse was her wallet, her identification, as well as her personal phone. When Sierra checked the phone, it did not show any recent activity. In fact, it showed a factory reset screen. This means that that phone had been completely wiped. The same thing was true for Melissa's work phone. Both devices had been totally cleaned. This means no contacts were visible, nor were any messages or call history. Something's just happened that I find really odd. It's not very often that I actually kind of feel a bit shaken doing this stuff, but something weird has just happened. So I've been working on this case for the last few days. And yesterday I was looking through the social media of Blue Creek Outfitters. That's the hunting business that Melissa and Mark own together. Part of their social media is their YouTube channel. On that channel, there was quite a few videos where Mark and Melissa are talking, and I found it really interesting. For instance, there was one video called The Good, the Bad and the Ugly of Social Media. And it seemed like they weren't completely happy with the way that people were talking to them online. It did seem like it was quite stressful for them and like they may have been upset about it. So I was going to include some of that in this video, and I was going to continue looking at other videos as well, just to try and understand a bit more of a background about the case, a bit more about Melissa, maybe a bit more about Mark and the family dynamics as well. Who knows where the key to these cases is? We don't know. It could be something small, and it could be something, and it often is something that's been there all along. But sadly, I didn't download any of the videos. It's worth noting as well that these videos didn't have many views at all. Like basically nobody watched this YouTube channel. However, since I watched these videos yesterday, but before I downloaded them, they've all been taken down from the internet. And that's kind of got me thinking, is it possible that whoever's in charge of that YouTube channel, they saw that somebody was watching the videos, but they didn't want those videos to be watched, or maybe they didn't want them to get out there? Now, believe me, I'm not making any accusations at all, but I find it strange that those videos have been up a really long time before and after Melissa went missing. And Melissa's been missing since June of 2025, remember? But straight after I watched those videos, now they've gone. Now, I don't know, but when I piece that together with the phones being completely wiped, to me it kind of just paints a strange picture of like erasure, of something being hidden. I really don't know, but I wanted to update you guys because weirdly it's kind of shaken me a bit. But back to the main video we go. Sierra also found the check that she'd given to her mother earlier that day, a check that had not been deposited. Nothing that Melissa would normally take to leave town was missing. Her vehicle remained in the driveway, her personal items remained in the house, and that house was otherwise undisturbed. These discoveries changed the situation from confusion to pure fear. It meant that a woman had left her home without the tools that she needed to function in daily life. It also meant that she'd taken the steps to erase her digital information. So this combination of things raised immediate questions. Was Melissa planning to be gone for only a very short time? Or was she maybe planning to not be found at all? At approximately 5 p.m, Melissa's husband returned home. After seeing what Sierra had found, he contacted the police. Melissa Casias was reported missing that evening.
New Mexico State Police, it's Tomas.
Yeah, this is Mark Casias. You know what? We cannot locate my wife. We haven't heard from her all day, and this is not like her. She doesn't do this, much less leave without her phone and contact people. And I mean, she even left me walking. Well, not walking. I had to get a ride with one of my friends. I'm just out of it right now. I'm just trying to figure this out.
That's fine. I have an officer on the way, and they're going to go speak with you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
From that moment forward, everything known about her movements became limited to what could be reconstructed, so detectives had to investigate all of the clues that Melissa had left behind. Once Melissa was reported missing, investigators began reconstructing her movements outside the home. The most critical question was whether anyone had seen her after she left Taos Plaza. A tip came in later that day from a family acquaintance. He said that he'd seen a woman matching Melissa's description walking along State Road 518. The location was in Talpa, several miles from the family home, 3, I believe. According to his account, the woman was walking eastbound along the highway. At first, he says he did not immediately recognize her, and it was only after seeing her a second time that he really believed it was Melissa. Investigators worked to verify this sighting. Security camera footage from a local business later confirmed it. That footage shows Melissa walking eastbound on NM 518 at approximately 2:18 p.m. She's wearing a light-coloured shirt, jeans, and light-coloured tennis shoes. She is carrying a backpack. The footage does not clearly show her facial expression, so perhaps a vital clue is missing. Investigators stated that it was difficult to determine whether she appeared distressed. She was, however, walking alone. No one is seen walking beside, behind, or in front of her. No vehicle is seen stopping near her in the recorded footage. This video became the last confirmed visual record of Melissa Casias. The family acquaintance also reported seeing a blue Dodge pickup truck in the area. He believed that the truck may have been following Melissa as she walked. However, it's important to note, law enforcement did later locate this truck, and they did identify the driver. The police then stated that the truck and the driver were cleared and were not involved in this case.
A family friend even saw her walking along the highway. He turned around to see if she needed help, but then all he saw was a blue truck driving by. No Casias. Her family thinks she got into that truck. Her family says her personal belongings are all still at home, including her phone, which had been factory reset.
Really wasn't dressed for the mountains, and I mean, she has the gear, so she would have definitely taken something like that.
Investigators emphasized that whilst the blue truck had been ruled out, the possibility that Melissa may have entered a vehicle later was not fully dismissed, nor whether she'd have done this on her own, or by force against her will. So, after 2:18 p.m., there are no confirmed sightings of Melissa. No additional camera footage has surfaced showing where she went next. No verified witnesses have come forward placing her anywhere else. The highway where she was last seen, that leads towards rural terrain and forested areas. It also leads towards routes that do connect to other towns. So, with plenty of options from that point forward, her movements become unknown. The investigation now depended on understanding how Melissa arrived at that location on the highway. It needed to know what had happened in the hours before she was seen walking alone. When Melissa Casias was reported missing, law enforcement classified her as a missing endangered person. Search efforts began almost immediately. Ground teams focused on State Road 518. Search dogs were deployed along the roadway and surrounding terrain. Volunteers from the community joined organised grid searches, and large sections of Carson National Forest were covered. Rivers, streams and rural areas near the highway were searched as well. Hundreds of acres overall were examined. Despite the scale of the search, nothing directly linked to Melissa was ever found. Law enforcement stated that Melissa may have left on her own accord, but they also stated that foul play has not been ruled out. Nobody has been publicly cleared in the investigation.
News 13 spoke to Casias' niece, who says they are desperate for answers.
We're now over 7 weeks in. The police are still taking this very seriously. They're still investigating. They're still looking for her. The state police have her listed as missing endangered. So that means that there's enough reason to believe that she is or was in danger, and the police are still on it. And no suspects have been cleared.
As the days after Melissa's vanishing passed, family members began to review Melissa's records. They discovered that she had been dealing with stress that they did not fully understand at the time. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, investigators identified financial strain as a possible source of pressure. Court records showed that Melissa had been involved in multiple civil legal matters. Some of those cases involved defaulted bills and breach of contract. In several filings, both Melissa and her husband Mark were listed as defendants. There was also an ongoing legal case tied to a car accident involving their daughter. Melissa and her daughter were named as plaintiffs in that lawsuit. Family members have said that the case was expected to result in financial settlement, but that settlement didn't happen. In fact, the lawsuit was dismissed on the scheduled trial date in February of 2025. According to relatives, that dismissal came as a significant blow. Family members later said that Melissa had been counting on that money. Investigators have not publicly detailed how the funds were intended to be used. They've also not stated that any wrongdoing occurred in relation to the case. But it has been confirmed that Melissa was under financial stress at the time that she disappeared. Her husband and daughter later stated that some of the pressure was not fully known to them. They described discovering financial issues only after she went missing. This context is part of why investigators have not ruled out the possibility that Melissa just left on her own. At the same time though, financial pressure alone does not explain key elements of this case. It does not explain why both of her phones were factory reset. It does not explain why her wallet, identification and vehicle were left behind. It doesn't explain why there has been no confirmed trace of her since the afternoon that she vanished. The financial strain does provide context, but it doesn't provide any answers. Some believe that this explains the disappearance, others disagree.
And though there's been an extensive search effort, not much has shed light on what happened to Melissa Casias. News 13's Chandler Farnsworth has the details.
It's been 9 days since Melissa Casias went missing. She was last seen near Talpa, just southeast of Ranchos de Taos. Her disappearance spurred large search and rescue operations and has prompted the involvement of New Mexico State Police.
Thursday, June 26th.
And so that's the last that we know about where she was that day. No positive news right now. We're really just trying to kind of keep it top of mind for people in the area.
Her family says Casias is an administrative assistant with Los Alamos National Laboratory and had went to work that day. They say she forgot her badge, which she needs for security clearance, and decided to work from home. Her family says Casias later took lunch to her daughter at the John Dunn shops in Taos and left the shops just before 1 p.m.
She got back in her car. She left. We have surveillance footage that shows what she was seen last wearing.
A tip came in later that day saying that someone saw her walking alone on foot on Highway 518 in Talpa and was seen on neighbors' Ring doorbell cameras, later verified by family from the clothes that she was wearing. The family says that's the last time she was seen. Since then, hundreds of volunteers, family members, and law enforcement have spent hours searching for Casias.
We created some large maps of the total search area. We divided that into quadrants and then sub-quadrants. So we had 16 grid areas where we sent volunteers.
The family is offering a $5,000 reward for information that leads to finding her.
The family asks the public to contact New Mexico State Police about any information that could lead to Casias' safe return. Back to you.
So, did Melissa choose to leave? Was she maybe walking to clear her head and then abducted? Is she still out there, somehow, surviving in the wilderness? With no new confirmed sightings, no new communications, no clear answers, we're left wondering, does anyone know what happened to Melissa Casias? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.